Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Red-Rupee Cast featuring Dawn of War 2 Retribution. Today we're on Calderis Refinery, and as you can see, it's going to be my first 2-on-2 match happening here. I know a lot of people were asking me if I was only going to be doing solo matches, but I want to spread it around, do some 2s, do some 3s, of course stick to some solos, and we've got a nice big high-level game. It's looking like here we got Blasta as our Tech Marine, and Sheffy as a Mech Boy on the blue side, and then of course on the red side we've got Raaar as our Ravener Alpha, and JamusMcGamus as our Chaos Plague Champion. So let's go ahead and get this game rolling here. We're on Calderis Refinery. Both players kind of have a power heavy place on opposite sides of the map here. You can see the blue side having 2 powers and a victory point on the eastern side, and on the opposite side, the red side, has their 2 powers and victory point on the west. So Calderis, of course, home of the giant pit of death, which is my favorite. Hopefully we'll be seeing a lot of action down in there. I personally like this map a lot. I know a lot of people don't really care for it, but it's one of my favorites, especially in team games. This Plague Champion obviously going to be a bit of a burden against these orcs. He's of course got his Plague Cloud and the Bile Spewer, especially dangerous considering both power are over here. They're really going to want to make sure that they can't see this side, because he can burn that power very quickly with that Bile Spewer. And it's going to be a good mix of trying to push the enemy's power and defend your own on far sides of the map. The Ravener Alpha of Raaar, of course, going to bring a bit more control in that aspect. He can really, if he can keep those tunnels up in the back of the map, really be able to help out either side as needed. You can see we've gotten our first major engagement. It looks like blue side has decided to double up over here and give this Plague Champion a little hurt. Gonna do the best they can to protect their power right off the bat. And now that that crisis has been averted, they're going to turn around and go ahead and make sure they can hold that middle victory point. You can see it looks like all 4 players going for a pretty ranged heavy army so far. You got double shooter boys for Sheffy, JamusMcGamus grabbing his second squad of Chaos Tactical Marines, and Blasta sitting with his 1 tack, and Raaar with both of his Termagants to start off the game. The Ravener going behind, trying to do a little harassment here, cause a little resource drain, pushing the wreck points on the lower side of the map. And Sheffy just stealing himself for the next impending battle here. Both sides getting up some reasonable power pretty quickly. You can see both with 1 full power gen farm and starting to fill up the second there. And the Plague Marine pushing into the center with JamusMcGamus there, probably going to try to meet up with his Tyranid buddy and roll around together. Especially with all these ranged heroes and ranged units. It looks like it's just going to be a big volley of back and forth here on who can put out the most bullets, really. I guess in the Nids case, it's not going to be bullets so much. But, you know, whatever it is exactly they shoot. I'm not familiar with the fluff. I don't know what Termagants fire out of their little bug cannons here. Tactical Marines engaged with some Hormagaunts. Normally they'd be able to probably win that fight, but unfortunately with all that ranged firepower coming from the Termagants and Raveners, they are going to have to get out of there. And meanwhile, the Plague Champion looks like he is going to get his opportunity to power bash. Not having himself the Bile Spewer quite yet, but plenty of range damage is going to make some pretty short work of this gen farm over here. Blasta and Sheffy really need to get over here, really need to defend this power farm. You can see Blasta getting himself some suppression hopefully to try to deal with a lot of that range damage, and Sheffy as well getting a Luda Boy squad, which you don't see very often. It'll be interesting to see if he can put that to good use or not. The Bile Spewer, unfortunately for Sheffy, just tearing through these shooter boys. He's just out of range of that firing arc on the Luda Boy death gun there. At this point, Sheffy could probably also get the Def Gun on the Mech Boy and probably use that pretty well. I know a lot of people don't like it for its lack of mobility, but in a team game it's pretty nice to have if you can teleport into big range blobs like right here and just suppress that whole pile of units. Plague Marine got a good flank on the Luda boys and managed to push them back, and some Raveners were purchased to deal with this other Devastator belonging to Blasta. So it looks like they're really getting pushed back into their bases now, having a lot of trouble dealing with all this ranged firepower. The Luda boys taking a lot of damage there, not quite able to keep up and keep the squad suppressed. And it looks like Blasta's gotten himself a pair of Devastators now, hopefully to help with those Raveners.
We have lost a generator to enemy fire.
But yes, looks like they have managed to impede, they being red, has managed to impede blue's power income pretty significantly. They've taken down both power farms and have all but one generator up on both of their own. So Jamus is going to push himself right into Tier 2, probably get himself maybe a quick Blood Crusher or something along those lines. And good use of the double aiming "What's that?" to suppress these Chaos Marines, giving the Luda boys just enough time to set up without losing another member, forcing Jamus off the field there.
Ready to serve.
You can see a little capping going on over here, and the Tech Marine getting rid of some tunnels. That's really important to do on a map the size of this. These 2 and 3 player maps, the Ravener is even more useful than in solo maps, I think, because he can really just make it so you can travel these much larger maps in a quicker way and be able to support either side. A triple cap now for the red side for Raaar and Jamus, taking down those points pretty quickly. Got a, in a matter of a minute there, got a quick advantage of 100 points over Raaar and Blasta and Sheffy. And not much happening now. Everybody's falling back, regrouping. Taking a look at war gear here, you can see the Tech Marine got himself some Artificer armor. Meanwhile, the Mech Boy did in fact get the Def Gun, so we should see some good support suppression coming from him. Ravener Alpha, and JamusMcGamus with a fully decked out Plague Champion here, with his Bile Spewer, the Fetid armor, and the Icon of Nurgle, giving him some ranged AoE there. Scouts getting pushed back, but a well-placed Devastator suppressing a large majority of this ranged blob. The Raveners are going to do a nice burrow strike. That's looking good, but unfortunately they were not expecting the cannonade waiting behind it. Just a pouring range fire into that squad. They had to instantly retreat and fall back under that immense amount of ranged DPS. Both squads of Chaos Marines now upgrading with the Mark of Sinch, while Raaar now pushes into Tier 2 himself. You can see the Blasta and Sheffy are just moving together here in a nice big ranged pile, with the support of their suppression really being able to push back on Raaar and JamusMcGamus. Hopefully they're going to try to return the favor of that generator bash and try to even out the tech levels here, but we'll see how that works out. He did have to fall back, Jamus, and it looks like they'll get their chance to push out here and hopefully wreck some of these generators. Meanwhile, you can see both players using a melee squad. They're Tier 1 melee squads, both the Hormagaunts and the Slugga boys, to do some good backcapping on either side of the map. Unfortunately, in a big team game like this, with this crazy amount of range damage that both sides have built, those Hormagaunts and Sluggas are not going to be much use ultimately. If they even get focused for a second or two, they will be down and out. Good support by the rear Devastator here, covering this entrance on this side of the map. That prevented the Plague Marine from getting in and doing anything tricky and sinister there. Meanwhile, the triple cap has gone ahead and reverted. We can see this whole match just turning around really quickly. I thought Blasta and Sheffy were going to be in a bit of a bind there at the beginning when they were being pushed back into their bases. Jamus now getting himself some Plague Marines, which is curious. I would have expected a Blood Crusher or something along those lines. Maybe demons to teleport in and deal with the suppression. an Artificer mine going up to hopefully deal with some of this melee moving in against these Devastators. Looks like they're going to jump right onto it, but that also hit the Tech Marine pretty hard. He needs to retreat. There he goes. And meanwhile, up top, we have Touch and Nurgle going down on the Chaos Heretics. Looks like they pushed back that Slugga squad, but the Mech Boy has teleported in and is pouring some Daka right into them. As Zoanthropes also come onto the field, you can see both sides just trying to figure out how is best to deal with this massive amount of ranged firepower on both sides, and artillery in this game is the answer to that.